Okay, Hare Krishna. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, 11th chapter, 41st and 42nd this slokas. दशोत्तर अधिकारैर्यत्र अधिकारैर्यत्र प्रविष्टा परमाणुव प्रविष्टाः परमाणुव लक्ष्यते अंतर्गताश्चन्य लक्ष्यते अंतर्गतास्तञ्चन्य कोटिशो हि अंधराशयः कोटिशो हि अंधराशयः. We'll go to the next sloka and then we can read this one. दशोदाधिकैर्यत्र
प्रविष्टः परमाणुवत् लक्ष्यते अंतर्गतश्चन्ये कोटिशो हि अंडरसायः
This sloka also together. तदाहुरक्षरं ब्रह्म सर्वकारण कारणं विष्णोर्धाम परं साक्षात् पुरुषस्य महात्मनः. तदाहुरक्षरं ब्रह्म सर्वकारण कारणं विष्णोर्धाम परं साक्षात् पुरुषस्य महात्मनः. तदाहुरक्षरं ब्रह्म सर्वकारण कारणं विष्णोर्धाम परं साक्षात् पुरुषस्य महात्मनः.
तदाहुरक्षरं ब्रह्म सर्वकारण कारणं विष्णोर्धाम परं साक्षात् पुरुषस्य महात्मनः. तदाहुरक्षरं ब्रह्म सर्वकारण कारणं विष्णोर्धाम परं साक्षात् पुरुषस्य महात्मनः.
Dasa Uttara Adhikayai, with 10 times greater thickness, yatra, in which Pravishtaha entered, Parama Anuvat, like atoms, Lakshayate, with the mass of the universe appears, Antaha Gataha, with coming together, come together, Cha and Anye in the other, Koti Shaha, clustered, he, for Andarasayaha, huge combination of universes. Translation: the layers or elements covering the universes are each 10 times thicker than the one before, and all the universes clustered together appear like atoms in a huge combination. I'll just read through quickly the purport also. The coverings of the universe are also constituted of the elements of the earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and each is 10 times thicker than the one before. The first covering of the universe is earth, and it is 10 times thicker than the universe itself. If the universe is 4 billion miles in size, then the size of the earthly covering of the universe is 4 billion times 10. The covering of water is 10 times greater than the earthly covering. The covering of fire is 10 times greater than the watery covering. The covering of air is 10 times greater than that of fire. The covering of ether is 10 times still greater than of air, and so on. The universe within the coverings of matter appears to be like an atom in comparison to the coverings, and the number of universes is unknown even to those who can estimate the coverings of the universes. So this is sloka number 41. So we'll go to 41 and 42 together. Okay. That Ahu, it is said, Aksharam, infallible, Brahma, the supreme, Sarva Karana, all causes, Karanam, the supreme cause, Vishnu Dhama, the spiritual abode of Vishnu, Param, the supreme Sakshat without doubt, Purushasya of the Purusha incarnation, Mahatmanaha of the Mahavishnu. The supreme person of Godhead Sri Krishna is therefore said to be the original cause of all causes. Thus, the spiritual abode of Vishnu is eternal without a doubt, and it is also the abode of Mahavishnu, the origin of all manifestations. Lord Mahavishnu, who is residing in Yoga Nitra on the causal ocean and creating innumerable universes by his breathing process, only temporarily appears in the Mahatattva for the temporary manifestation of the material worlds. He is a plenary portion of Lord Krishna, and thus, although he is non-different from Lord Krishna, his formal appearance in the material world as an incarnation is temporary. The original form of personality of God, it is actually the Swarupa or the real form, and he eternally resides in Vaikuntha world, Vishnuloka. The word Mahatmanaha is used here to indicate Mahavishnu, and his real manifestation is Lord Krishna, who is the Parama, as confirmed in Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha, Anadiradir Govinda, sarva karana karanam. The Supreme Lord is Krishna, the original personality of Godhead known as Govinda. His form is eternal, full of bliss, knowledge, and he is the original cause of all causes. Hare Krishna. So, welcome all again. Today we are going to see Bhagavatam's third canto, 11 chapters, last two slokas. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Nilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamagyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapata Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sangrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna. So once again, welcome all to this wonderful Sunday morning, rainy morning Bhagavatam. Thank you very much for making it here today. So today we're going to see the third canto's 11th chapter, the last portion, kind of a summary in which we can conclude that particular chapter's entire understanding of what is meant by atom, what is meant by life, the time, and then how the time factor is calculated, and finally what is the importance or what is the significance of time. So in the last class, His Grace Balakrishna Prabhu was mentioning specifically focusing on the importance of understanding time and how does it apply from a devotee perspective. So the last 2-3 slokas are very important. So in which it was covered like time factor is not related to bodily conscious. It is more towards bodily conscious people. So if you go out of it, then it is always at a spiritual level, at a level in which you don't really worry about the time factor. So today we'll just go. The chapter has got around 42 slokas. We'll just try to summarize the entire portion so that we'll cover this particular chapter. So from next week onwards, when you start the next important expansion. So from third canto, this chapter is all about Lord's creation part, Sarga and Visarga. So from afterwards, the sub-creations of the 4 Kumaras, Brahma, and all the Rishis, everything will create. So now it is all only gross material manifestation of it. So this will end this particular portion of Lord's creation as Sarga portion. And then afterwards, the Visarga portion of Lord's creation of other things will start. Okay. So, I mean, usually I just give this one. So we have already gone through this portion, but third canto is divided into 4 major sections, in which we see this entire conversation is where Maitreya Rishi sitting with Uddhava and Vidura and getting all the information. Okay, so this is where we are in between chapter called as Sarga and Visarga portion. Okay, so the last two important sections is appearance of Lord Varadev and Kapilev. So that is how the third canto is majorly divided. Okay, now it has got around 33 chapters. So we'll just quickly get into the main portion of this particular, maybe just to give an understanding, 9th chapter is all about manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. The entire chapter is talking about how Garbhodakshaya Vishnu manifesting, and then after which you have the Karanodakshaya Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then Brahma's manifestation and Brahma's prayers. We saw in detail about 8th and 9th chapter about how Brahma prays and how does he come out, all those portion. Okay. And then 10th chapter is where we saw the different creations, the divisions of creation, the 9 types of creation from the main Mahatattva and then motion. So this is where 8, 9, 10, 11 also. So this is one group, Sarga and Visarga. From 12th onwards, it's all about the Kumara's manifestation and the other sub-creations. Okay. So 11th chapter is what we are focusing in the last few weeks, a few months. We are focusing on this particular chapter. This particular chapter is majorly divided into 4 major categories, in which we can see what is the importance of calculation, why that time factor should be understood. Okay, we understand it is part of Krishna's energy. We understand Krishna himself is manifesting as time. And we also understand going very detailed, specific understanding about what is Anu, and then what is meant by from that Anu, how that the time factor is bringing on, and then how does time is getting part of the entire manifestation or entire creation. It is also very nicely mentioned. And then specifically, Vidura is asking this question about how do I understand this kalpa? How do I understand these periods? How do I understand the millennium? How do I understand the yuga portion? And then Maitreya Rishi answers in a section from 15 to 16 slokas about the entire calculation about the different yugas, different years, and also he is asking about Brahma. Okay, so because Brahma is the first person, Brahma is the first creation. So we need to understand about Brahma's portion. And again, very specifically, one section about what is Brahma's lifespan and how does it get calculated. And then finally, the last portion is important about when you understand Brahma's lifespan, then the conclusion portion is important, where the last 4 slokas is talking, one is, the previous section is talking about significance of Brahma's lifespan. How much big is the lifespan? Then immediately last 4 is insignificant portion of Brahma's life. Both are together. Which means you start understanding atom, you start understanding time, you start understanding the other portions. Then you say, oh, so much is there. And then you start understanding about Brahma's life. Oh, it is so large, 400 billion years, 432 million years. You're talking about everything, and you feel like. And then finally, it concludes this, oh, it is nothing, it is just insignificant. So that is how it concludes. Which means we need to understand which is more superior. That is what Maitreya Rishi concludes. So it is just an Anu. Brahma's entire lifespan, Brahma's portion lifespan is just insignificant in front of Krishna. That's how the chapter concludes. That is what we will try to see. Okay, every chapter we see, it starts with the entire understanding about the energy, understanding about the creation, all. But finally, all the acharyas or all the great devotees glorify Krishna in that particular. Okay, so that is where it ends. So today's last sloka is also very significant portion. We'll spend a little more time on that last 2. Okay, but before that, we can just quickly take 5 minutes or 6-7 minutes, just understand each of the sections, so that you will get one particular full understanding of this particular chapter. Okay. Okay. So the previous canto, this is where most importantly, understanding of time given by Brahma. Okay, when during his Brahma's prayers, this particular portion is given, and then based on this understanding is what we are seeing in the 11th chapter. Okay, so in the 3rd canto, this is all talking about where eternal time is the most important, where it is the source of all the interactions of the material nature. Okay, so in 3 main slokas, it is very significantly mentioned. Okay, the 2nd sloka is very important. Guna vichatir srajham sarupa prakritim prajaha vilokya mumye sadaha saha jnana gugyaha. Okay, so this material creation, once it gets into this 3 modes, the material mode itself is created from the time factor. Okay, so that is where we understand that time factor, the importance of time is where, because of the time, you have these 3 material modes getting created. Okay, so that is where the importance of time is brought out, and how that particular time factor is influencing the modes is also important. So when we read through Bhagavad Gita, we understand what because of the modes only everything is getting done. All the activities, whatever that we try to do, everything is revolving around these material modes. One step above the modes is the time. Okay, so that is what we need to understand. Okay. We saw this also in the third canto and fourth canto also, specifically focusing a word called guna vyatikara akara. Guna vyatikara akara means this kalaha. Okay, so when we read through Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam also, many places this kala portion or the time factor is mentioned, where it's kind of a cyclic way. The source of modes is kala at the time, and based on the modes we get the various karma or various actions that we perform, and for the various actions what do we get? We get the reactions, right? So based on the reactions, again, based on the influence of time, we get into a next birth, and then based on the next birth, we again perform, and based on the modes that we always recite, then within that modes, we get into different actions, and then for that actions, we'll have a reaction, and then again it is. So kind of a cycle, but the source of this cycle is focusing from a time factor perspective. Okay. Let's skip this portion. Yeah, this is the very important one. Why we need to understand in the previous chapters, in the fundamental principle of material nature, again from the 9th and 10th chapter, specifically focusing on these 4 slokas. Okay, we'll take some more time. Okay, the first sloka, etavan yuve sankyato brahmanaha sagunasyaha sannivesho maya aprokto yakalaha panchavimsaha. Okay, so when we say panchavimsaha, when we say this 24 material elements, right? So when we talk about this 24 material elements, we have this karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, the panchabhutas, and then the senses, sense objects, everything. So everything put together, we have this 24 material elements. But most importantly, all these 24 material elements needs a mixing element, and that mixing element is called time. Okay? So that is where it is brought out. And so for us to understand the principles, the 25th element is called the time factor, and that is included. This is again at a normal theoretical level. But beyond the theoretical level is the next 3 slokas. Okay, next level is talking about prabhavam paurisham prahu kalam yaktyo yato bhayam ahankara vimudasya kartuhu prakritim ishyuha. Okay, which means what? The influence of spiritual personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes the fear of death due to false ego of the deluded soul who has contacted material nature. Which means this particular jivatma, where due to false ego, when he comes into this particular material world, he is using the word deluded soul. Okay? Very, very nicely pointed. Because this jivatma is deluded, first point. Second, this jivatma is deluded and comes to this material nature. And then once it comes to the material nature, what happens? He is getting into the modes. Second point. Third point is, because of the modes, because of the delusion, he is always subject to the fear of death. So because of the fear of death, he has to continuously perform certain activities, continuously perform certain karma activities, and then based on the karma activities, again, his reactions, and then he's getting into that particular cycle. Okay, this is what we can mention. The third point is also very important. The time factor, as I have explained, is the supreme personality. Very clearly, Brahma is bringing it. Prakriti guna samajasya nibhiseshasya manavi chetasa yatasa bhagavan kala iti upalakshmita. So Bhagavan kala iti upalakshmita. The time factor, as I have explained, is the supreme person of Godhead, from whom the creation begins as a result of agitation. Very importantly. So whenever we say Karnodaksha Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Sirodaksha Vishnu, how does that particular creation happen? Is because of time. So because of time, the agitation or the creation portion gets started. And then who is that? It is nothing but the supreme person of God. So nirviseshasya manavi chetaha yata sa Bhagavan. Very direct understanding, Brahma is giving it out. So when somebody is asking, how do you understand this time factor? It is nothing but Lord, it is nothing but Lord's energy. There is nothing but Lord's energy manifested for the material creation, for everything together. So when you say everything together, it means it includes creation, includes maintenance, and includes destruction also. Okay, so every time, this requires little kind of realization, where I just thought I'll realize certain points. So whenever there is, whenever we discuss with our acharyas or with Prabhujis or senior persons, what is the resolution, or what is the kind of a soothing effect that everybody will say generally? When you go to somebody, they'll say, I have this problem. The first thing what they will say, time will heal. Right? You just wait for time. Time will heal. Which means what? Time requires, time is kind of where in which we can, or the kala is which, like, there is something created, and then that particular portion has to go for a particular period. Okay, so nobody knows or nobody understands how much it will time. And then definitely there is an end also. But for a starting, for the middle portion and the end portion, everything together requires the boundaries, but everything is within the time. So whenever we approach Devaki Prabhu, everybody, Acharya, so they'll say, it's okay, time is the only thing. Right? So that is where we go and seek for problems. The other portion, like last time when we had discussion with Balakrishna Prabhu, what we understand is only when we go through problems portion, we see the time quarter. This time implies to the goodness also, when we say on the happiness portion also. So nobody understands that whenever there is a very good period, whenever there is happy period, what does that mean? That is also time bound. That is also time bound. That is also temporary. That is also will go. Okay? So the moment we think about only on the sorrow and the distress portion, we see that how much time it is there, how much portion it will be there. But the other side is also very important. Okay? That is where this last sloka is bringing out. Okay, Antah Purusha Rupena Kala Rupena Yobahi Sammanvateyeta Satvatanam Bhagavan Atma Maya. The Bhagavan Atma Maya, everybody knows. Okay, so this sloka, even in Bhagavad Gita, it is already mentioned in many slokas. Bhagavan Atma Maya. What is that? By exhibiting his potencies, the Supreme Person of Godhead adjusts all these different elements. Nice word. Prabhupada is using adjusts all these elements. What is he do? Keeping himself within as the super soul. So he's creating the material manifestation. He is doing all the activities. He's making that agitation, and he's adjusting, and then he's going inside them also. Okay, so he's going inside them, but most important, the last one, without as time. So when he enters into each of the jivatmas as the Paramatma, the kalam portion does not affect that particular Paramatma inside, but it affects the jivatma, it affects all the other aspects, but it does not affect him. Okay, so that is where we say Bhagavan Atma Maya. Samanveti means getting into it, Esha Satvana. So this is where we can see. So fundamental principles of material nature very clearly identifies this portion, the importance of kala, importance of time, and also understanding that this time is from the Lord. And then third portion is what? Even though it is coming from the Lord is not affected, or Lord is beyond the time factor. Okay, that is where we need to understand. Three different portions. First portion is about understanding theoretical or philosophical understanding of karma, kala, and then how does it affect the material nature, how does it affect the jivatma, how does it affect everything, the modes, everything. Third portion, it is from the Lord, it is from the Lord's energy, it is from the Lord's potency. The fourth portion is very important. Even though everything is coming from Krishna at the time, he is beyond the time factor. Okay. So all these Bhagavad Gita portions, we know, Daiveshe Gunamayi or Maya Dakshaya Pragitam. So whatever sloka we take, everything is revolving around this particular portion of creation, and then the creation's importance and the time factor within that. Okay? I don't want to get into this portion. Okay. The next portion in this particular chapter, very specifically going very minute details, more from a scientific perspective of what is the time, and then how does the time calculation is so elaborately mentioned. So Maitreya Rishi give this knowledge. And why this knowledge is important? Why this knowledge is important? Anybody? Why should Maitreya Rishi give this so much of details? Nimisha, then one after Nimisha is Kasta, and then every Nimisha is one Kshanam, and after that Muhurtam, and then Paksham, Masam, Ritu, like that he is giving. How does this help us?
Eventually, take that all is insignificance because of God. He is not trying to make a big picture.
Yeah, correct. So one is he's making it a very big picture. Don't underestimate time. It has got so much of scientific understanding, but everything is insignificant. That is the last question. And what is the need for giving out this specific? Any other thought?
The time is Krishna. We also need to understand time.
Yes, we understand. Correct. No, I'm going to ask the other way. Okay, sorry. I'll put it. How do you apply this? How can we apply these details? For example, they say 1,000 Mahayugas, one kalpa, one day, one night, this one. How do we apply this? Okay, it's in a normal science, normal calculation also. For example, any particular object or any particular activity, for example, from a scientific perspective also, everything requires a calculation. Everything is time bound. For any action, any process required, it requires a particular time to be defined. Any action that, for example, in a very higher principle, for example, a rocket has to be launched. The most important point of that rocket's launch is the time duration. How much time it requires to push the energy from the launch pad, how much time is required that particular satellite goes and reaches the orbit, how much time it stays in the orbit, how much time it takes there to be alive, and then how much time it takes to destroy, how much time it takes to come down. So this is about the simple understanding about how the importance of, so everything is minute seconds. So the second portion of understanding is even for a normal running race, I'm just giving a very raw example, that determines success or failure. That determines good or bad. That determines whether we have done it correctly or not. So that determines whether we are in the right direction. So everything is, if you see in one perspective, time actually defines everything together. For example, somebody running 100 meters, how does that particular person's victory is enabled is through reaching first and the number of seconds. Similarly, it applies to anything also. So the number of seconds by that particular person reaches a particular goal determines the victory and determines the defeat also. So that applies to any other activity also. So all activities, if you go in understanding, you will see that without this time factor, nothing will be able to. You will be able to do you will not be able to understand what is the actual output or the result of it. Right? Anything for that matter. So when you say this particular activity, an activity requires a start and an end time. Every activity requires a particular duration to be defined. For example, in a deity worship, how much time it is required for us to do arti, how much time we take to perform certain portions of the arti is also very important. So like that, every action, if you go a little more detail, every action requires this particular time factor defined very clearly. Okay? From a higher level science, from a rocket science perspective to normal, any other activity requires this. So that is why one portion, as Prabhu rightly mentioned, this all becomes insignificant portion. But for us to continue our life, for us to live in a normal, ordinary life, we need to understand the importance of times, specific details also. For example, muhurtam, they say 25 minutes of muhurtam. That muhurtam is a very significant portion in which you do all auspicious activities. And there is a portion in which you don't do all auspicious activities, which means that we need to understand that particular time portion. Okay. Then the next section. So this first section is about definition of atom, definition of this time. And now the next section is very importantly, when I understand this, Vidura's specific questions. Okay, what does he ask to Maitreya is, how do I understand this Kala Chakra? How do I understand this creation and Brahma's portion coming into it? Okay, so these are some of the questions posted by Vidura. And then what is the duration? Like for example, we'll say 100 years is kind of duration. So this question always comes, right? When all the great asuras, or when the great asuras like Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, when they try to do penance, when they try to do tapasya, they did it for how many years? We don't know. Somebody will say 10,000 years, 40,000 years, 20,000 years. So how does that happen? How does that relatively understand? So for that particular yuga, how much time is they spent on that particular activity? Right? So whenever we say Rama Rajya, right? When during that particular yuga, Lord Rama ruled for so many years. So then that means how much of years, for example, what was his lifespan? Somebody will say he lived for 300 years. Somebody will say he lived for 400 years. But whatever be that, relatively, it is within that particular time frame. So that is where duration also is very important, where Vidura is asking this question to Maitreya Rishi. So again, this section from 31st to 33 or 35 slokas, very elaborately we saw what is meant by yuga, what is meant by the celestial years, for how much day for 1 day of Brahma, morning time, and then his evening time, there is night time, how does that calculate? All those answers are being given by Maitreya Rishi. Okay, but in this portion, what we saw is also very important. Brahmaji, even while sleeping, this sloka we saw in very detail, right? During his night time, during his morning time, there is an activity is going, and during his night time, there is a small annihilation happening. Everything goes in and then again coming back. Okay, that portion we saw. But during his night time also, in the perfect Prabhupada is also very nicely bringing where what does Brahmaji do while sleeping? Okay? Even while sleeping, he is always thinking about Vishnu. He is always thinking about Garbhodaksha Vishnu. What does that mean? What does it mean is he's preparing for his next life. That is what Prabhupada is mentioning. So even while sleeping, why we glorify Brahma in a one sense of being great devotee is he knows that everything is temporary. Even though his lifespan is so big that we cannot even calculate, he himself is thinking that, oh, my lifespan is very short. I have to do something. Okay. Just imagine, like we saw, no? Even in last class, Prabhu was mentioning the entire lifespan for us is very short. Why should we worry about that? Then imagine Brahma. Brahma is himself is having so much of time, but within the time also, he's always thinking that my time is very short. Let me always pray to the Lord, even during sleep time. Okay. So this portion requires a little more understanding in which how does we utilize our time? How does we ensure that that particular time is always dedicated to Krishna? So that is where this section is nicely brought out. So, and last sloka in this particular section, last sloka is very important, where Prabhupada is making this particular statement. It is necessary that every human being responsible in preparing himself for next life. Even if he has a duration of life of the Brahma, the greatest of all living creatures within. So Brahma himself is preparing for his next life. So it applies for us also. If Brahma himself is preparing for his next life, by what? Even while sleeping, he's thinking of Krishna. While creation, while doing all his normal activities, he still continues to think about Krishna. So that gives us a lesson that whenever we understand, or whenever we want to read through Bhagavatam, whenever we try to do so many sadhana activities, the time is very, very essential. How do I ensure that particular time is dedicated to Krishna? Right? So this replies whenever we chant, whenever we do our morning seva, that time is also very focused attention is required, where we see that yes, this particular time is always dedicated for Krishna. So I still remember when somebody was asking, how do I ensure this whenever I do this japa, or whenever I do morning mangla, morning chanting, I have a lot of distractions and everything. Mahatma Prabhu, we all know Mahatma Prabhu. Mahatma Prabhu is Srila Prabhupada's disciple. So he does a lot of this mantra japa workshops. So in one of the mantra japa workshops, he was mentioning this nice point. Like, he brought this 20 affirmations. Initially, he gave this 10 affirmations about how do I effectively do my chanting. So in the first 10 affirmations, he mentioned about this time part. Okay, so you do your chanting during the Brahma Muhurta time, and then most importantly, when you do this chanting, what is the thought that you should have is this time is dedicated for Krishna. Because Krishna is going to come, Krishna is always in my tongue, Krishna is always there as Nama Prabhu in my tongue. I have to give this time to Krishna, and I cannot waste my time thinking about anything else. So Mahatma Prabhu mentioned this in the workshop. So when you start chanting, always think that yes, I am dedicating this particular time, like one particular mala or one round is around 7 to 8 minutes. Is that 7 to 8 minutes is only for Krishna and nothing, and for nobody else or for nothing else. My mind should not get diverted. I'm giving this for Krishna. So what he told us in the workshop, before you chant, just take a pause of 2 minutes and say, I'm giving this time only for Krishna. Like that, you start thinking and then start chanting. When you start chanting, at least for that particular 1 minute or at least 30 seconds, you will be for that time is dedicated for Krishna. After that, we don't know. After that, we don't know. It is not in our hands. But at least you say, oh, I'm doing it for Krishna. Okay, let me chant. At least for that moment, you will have. So he did that workshop very nicely. And some of them, after that workshop, they told, yes, it is. We have that effect. We can see that the difference in what we say. So when we do this chanting also, when we do this 10 offenses against the holy name, that also is very important. And this affirmation is also very important. The other example he always gives is, like for example, you have this, you have an appointment with the president, or you have an appointment with Modi, or when you have an appointment with Prime Minister, how much preparation you will do, how much of time you will ensure that when you have that particular, you have only 5 minutes to talk with minister, you have only 3 minutes to talk with Modi. What you will do? You do a lot of preparation, and then for that particular moment, you will, whatever you wanted to do, you will do. Whatever you want to convey, you will convey. So this is also one way he told that try to have that particular that enthusiasm and that particular thing, that for every chanting, every round he told. And then everybody said every round and all very tough. Maybe daily we can try. Or somebody told maybe Ekadasi time I will try. So it depends. So, but Mahatma Prabhu told, no, every round you should have that. Then only every round is very effective. Otherwise, it is very tough. So, in that particular portion, he also mentioned this responsibility. The chanting is kind of a responsible activity. Chanting is kind of an accountable activity. We are accountable to our Acharya. We are accountable to Prabhupada. So it means there's a lot of weightage of responsibility and accountability is coming. Okay. Yeah, so this 33rd sloka to 37th sloka, a lot of definitions about Varaha Kalpa, Padma Kalpa, Brahma Kalpa, all these Kalpa portions will come. And this is where we saw in the last section. Time can control only those who are bodily conscious or body conscious, even up to Satyaloka. Okay. But beyond this, when it comes to the spiritual world, there's nothing called time. Time is unlimited, and the spiritual world is also unlimited. But time is unlimited, spiritual world is also unlimited. Okay. Since everything exists there on the absolute plan. Okay. So this is again another way of a quick representation, again from a theoretical understanding about Kalpa, Manvantara, and the yugas. Okay. So this entire thing is about life of Brahma. Okay, number of billion, 4.2 billion years. How does it is getting calculated in different portions? Okay. So all these things, as Prabhu rightly mentioned, we need to understand. Okay, how am I going to understand all these particular portion of it? Okay. So the last portion alone we'll just focus. Okay, today the last is 2 slokas, 39, 40, 42. Okay. 40, 41 is about the yojanas. Okay, 40, 41 is all about this sloka is also important. I'll just quickly mention about this sloka. It's called Dviprartha, in which talking about lifespan of Brahma is only a nimisha. Okay, only nimisha means that's all. One nimisha, like 1 second. Okay, so this 38 sloka is talking about lifespan of Brahma. And then Maitreya bringing out this particular understanding about the Lord. Okay, he's making out four different ways of explaining that. Okay, Avyakrityasya, Anantasya, Anadi, Jagat Atmanaha. 38th sloka. So talking about lifespan of Brahma and bringing that with Lord's potency, Lord's understanding, Lord's the knowledge about the Lord. What are the knowledge? What are the 4 major understanding of knowledge is about unchanging, Avyakta Vinu, right? And we also know Anantasya, Avyakritasya. Avyakritasya means that which doesn't change. And second is Anantasya, Anantam. So there's also understand. Anadir, Adir, Govinda. Okay, Anadi, we don't know. We cannot even calculate, or we cannot even try to see when it started, when it is going to end about this. Last is also Jagat Atmanaha. Jagat Atmanaha is he is going as Paramatma into every living entity, everything he is getting into. Right? So this is where he is mentioning about this 1 second of the Lord, the entire lifespan of Brahma can be. And the last loka that we saw in the last class is this: time cannot control the Supreme Lord. This portion we have seen. Yeah, this is also we can understand. Yeah. So this is where we saw time can control only those who are bodily conscious, even up to Satyaloka. This portion. So now this 2 slokas we'll just see. This slokas is about 41st and 42nd sloka is all about conclusion, in which he is making about an understanding about this, how this particular earth, this universe is there. So this universe This 4 million miles, 4 billion miles, sorry. So 4 billion miles is the entire length and breadth of one universe, one particular universe, one andam. Okay? And then what is that? That one andam is covered by this Panchabhutas. But how does that Panchabhuta is also mentioned? It's 10 times like that. So when you say this is 4 billion times, this is again covered by Earth itself. Earth or the Bhumi is covered by 80 million miles, this entire thing. So which is very large. And beyond that is what? 80 billion into 10 times is the portion covered by water. And then apply that 80 into 10 into 10 is fire. And then 80 into 10 into 10 is air. And then 80 into the entire thing is by ether. So the number of, this is one universe. One universe itself is elaborated so long. Similarly, from Vishnu, you get so much of universes. So this is where we see the unlimited potency, we cannot do the infinite understanding. Okay, so when you go this itself, we can say so many billion years, so many millions of andas together coming out of Vishnu, just like that. And then while all these the billions and millions of universes coming out, what does he do? He just simply like, he doesn't have to do anything. He just comes out, goes in touch. But this sloka is where the conclusion, very, very nice sloka. Tat ahur aksharam brahma, sarva karana karanam, Vishnur dhama param sakshat, purusashya mahatma. So this is where we see how devotees glorify Krishna, how devotees end that particular understanding. Every knowledge that we try to get should end in understanding about Krishna. So this prakriti, this particular sarga, this particular creation, this everything is okay. Even in Bhagavad Gita also, he'll talk about everything. Then finally he'll say everything is coming out. Without that particular end portion, whatever you have learned or whatever you try to understand from in the beginning portion becomes nullified or becomes zero when that particular understanding of Lord is the sarva karana karanam. Okay. So we can always say why can't he say this in the front and then why? What will happen when we say when somebody starts the understanding? Okay, Krishna is sarva karana karanam. Okay, then he will start explaining. What will happen? Will not pay attention.
First, need to understand how big
the whole is. Correct. Most importantly, the significance or the importance will go away. The importance will go away because usually first slokas, first anywhere, no, any class, first thing we will never listen also, we will never understand also. We'll go away. In between only we'll try to start understanding and last we will wake up. Right. So that is how again our Acharya is trying to bring that also. So he starts with a normal understanding of what is this time factor, prakriti, calculation, brahma, everything. But at least in the last question, wake up, Jeev Jaho, wake up and see whatever you have learned is nothing but tat ahur aksharam brahma, sarva karana karanam. So sarva karana karanam, very elaborately mentioned. Prabhupada is also bringing from the Brahma Samhita. The second portion of this sloka is Vishnur dhama param sakshat. Vishnu Dhamma Param Sakshat is again where when you try to understand the spiritual portion of Krishna, the spiritual world, the spiritual energy, then material creation, material portion, material which is temporary, which is what Vishnu Dhamma Param Sakshat Purushasya Mahatma. That Mahatma is referring to Mahavishnu, Krishna, whatever we don't understand. Like even in other many slokas, we say this is eternal, this is permanent, this is temporary, that will always go away. Right? So I was trying to take the Ishvara Paramakrishna sloka and then try to see what Prabhupada gives in Brahma Samhita. One of the most toughest purport anybody can understand is that this is the purpose of sometimes whenever we try to understand Brahma Samhita's purport, no, always I think I need something more purport to the main purport. Okay, because it is beyond our normal understanding. Okay, I just thought I will just go through that purport also. Because how do we really understand this sarva karana karanam? We always say sarva karana karanam, sarva karana. Right? So I was trying to see how do we understand this. The very intensely blended entity of eternal presence of felicitous cognition is the charming, targeted, holding, or transcendental icon. Somebody can understand?
Yeah.
No way. I was trying to read multiple times, then something I can understand. So this is sarva karana karana. Okay. Then next, it follows the conception of indistinguishable formless magnitude Brahman, which is an indolent, lax, presentant of cognitive bliss. Is merely a member of intensely blended glow of three. What is the three conditions? I'm trying to understand and more, but we can. This three cognition is nothing but Sachidanandam. Okay, blissful, substantive, and cognitive. That is the Sachidananda. Now everybody will easily understand. Sachidananda means understand. But for the Sachidananda, he is bringing this nice portion. Blissful, Sachidananda Vigraha. Okay. The Vigraha portion is coming here. So how do I understood was every line of this, how do I relate to the sloka? This transcendental manifestive icon, Krishna, is his original face, his primordial background of magnitudinal infinitive Brahman of the all-pervasive oversoul. This is the Vigraha portion. Okay. Krishna is truly visioned in his variegated pastimes, okay, such as the owner of transcendental cows, chief of cowherds, consort of milkmaids, ruler of terrestrial abode, Goloka, and object of worship by transcendental residents of Goloka beauties is Govinda. Govinda. Now, this is where he's talking about sarva karana. He is the root cause of all causes who are predominating and predominated agencies. Who are predominating? Predominated agents are who? This is where he's bringing out. He is the cause of all the causes of who are the predominating. How do we understand predominating? All the devatas, all whomsoever we trying to, even actually devatas also, even this material world, some are trying to predominate, right? Somebody will always trying to predominate, whatever be it. And predominated agents of the universe, whatever that we try to see is understand on a predominated state. This portion, the glance of his projected fractional portion in the sacred original water. This is what is the glance of the Vishnu. So the Vishnu, Mahavishnu, he just glances from the Karanodaksha, from the water, and then from the fractional portion of that water, the personal, this is the Karanodaksha Vishnu portion, or the Garbhodaksha Vishnu, you can say. Then comes the personal oversoul or the Paramatma. The second portion, the Shirodaksha Vishnu or the Paramatma who goes into every living entity or every creation, gives rise to a secondary potency nature who creates this material, mundane universe. This is talking about the next Vishnu. This oversoul's intermediate energy brings forth the individual soul's portion. This oversoul, who is this oversoul? Is the Garbhodaksha Vishnu, Karanodaksha Vishnu, Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So this oversoul is the Garbhodaksha Vishnu. So this Garbhodaksha Vishnu's intermediate energy brings forth the individual soul. So from him, all the individual Jivatmas come. This is one question. Analogously to the emanated rays. So similar to how the sun rays come out, just like that from his body, everything is coming out. This book is a treat, but when you try to understand this portion, how do I understand is sarva karana karanam? He is the cause of all causes. So what are all those causes? The cause of material creation, cause of time, cause of this particular living entities, and within living entities, all the types of living entities, all the other activities, the time factor, the actions that needs to perform, and based on that actions, how is this revolving happening, and who is the sanctioning authority, who is the fulfilling person, who is giving that particular direction, who is giving everything is also karma. So whatever we try to see from a creation, sub-creation, activities, and then the result of those activities is also resultant, or the resultant activities that needs to get in is also through Krishna. Okay, so that is how this sarva karana karana can be quickly understood. So I'll just quickly summarize. So this is the last portion of this chapter, in which we try to see how does this chapter ends by Maitreya concluding that everything is all because of Krishna. This portion. Okay, some of the key takeaways what we try to understand. Key takeaways is initially starting with atoms, definition of atoms, calculation, measurement of time, measurement of distance, understanding of the time, duration of one kalpa and different kalpas, and description about the yugas. And then Vidura been asking about how do I understand lifespan of Brahma. Then Maitreya giving about details of Brahma's lifespan, Brahma's night, and Brahma's day. And then end portion is where insignificance of time when compared to Brahma's in front of lifespan is in front of the Supreme Lord. And the last is time is only bodily consciousness. So this portion we saw last week. And Lord is beyond the time and he's cause of the all classes. Okay, this is how this entire chapter concludes. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.
So it is described that Brahma's entire lifespan is Dakshay Vishnu just one nimish or one moment. So what is this one moment? Is this again not life, not time?
Not directly this time. It is like we say it is just like that for Krishna. So it is very insignificant, means there's nothing really to be done. So when you want to attach this lifespan of Brahma has got so many activities involved in it, so many things that is going to happen, which requires intelligence, it requires so many other things. So whatever be it, it is nothing for. It is not directly related to Nimisha, is that directly related to Krishna's life. Pushpa Gopal Prabhu, anything specifically you want to realize? Yes,
So we know that the time is cyclic in our tradition, in our Vedic literature. But still, often when you are explaining to someone, they still think that when the Krishna expanded, Krishna expanded, Madhya Neda came out of him, or the time factor was put into play. So how do we, the part we don't understand from here is that there are two understandings. One understanding could be that it was all there from the day one. But then, or is it at some point Krishna expanded? Because sometimes when you read the scripture, of course, it says Krishna expanded. But how do we understand? Is it that it was always there? Or is it that, especially the yugas and the material, did it come out of Krishna at some point? And if that is the case, then what was before that? So,
yeah.
The whole, I don't believe in dating something, but I think this is a supposed. How do you understand it? Is it always there?
So it is always there. So there's no doubt about it. But this the Vyaktam and Avyaktam portion will come. So manifested and unmanifested thing. So the time is there as kind of a larger boundary, and which certain things are Vyaktam and certain time it is Avyaktam. So it is in an unmanifested state. So when it means that is it not there? Yeah, externally from a material perspective, it is not there. But it is in an unmanifested state. It is in a kind of a state where it is not visible in Vyaktam state. But the moment the real time comes, the providence, the Prabhupada will use the word providence. When it comes there, then the avyaktam, then the portion will come, and then it is already manifested, and then we are able to, whatever action, whatever we are able to realize, everything will come. So to answer one portion, within the time boundary, everything is already existing and it will exist. And whenever it is required, it will come, and then whenever it is not required, it will go away. So it doesn't mean that there is a significance portion of where it's completely destroyed. It is always there, but it will keep on going. So even how do we understand? Even this annihilation is again divided into three categories. Creation also is continuously happening. Every moment some creation is happening. Every moment there is a destruction happening, and every kalpa end is a destruction happening, and every one mahakalpa is also a destruction happening. So which means that destruction is a continuous activity. Creation is also another continuous activity. So within the time factor, everything will come and then go, come and go. So from a Sanskrit analogy, the word perspective, we can take that vyaktam and avyaktam question. And Prabhupada is giving that meaning as manifestation and unmanifestation. So it is an unmanifested state. So it is there, but it is in an unmanifested state.
So when it manifests, it starts at some point.
It starts at some point and it ends at some point.
Don't come that time. Or maybe not the material time. So it manifests, again it unmanifests, and then it again manifests.
Yes.
So what is this word? I mean, it is happening at different points.
Yeah, it is happening in different points. I'm not getting that question.
One of the characteristic of time is that something starts at one point, then ends, then again starts, and then again ends. So how is this manifestation and unmanifestation?
Manifestation is nothing but an activity, right? So an activity has to be happen. So that activity has got a time. So anything and everything, for example, anything and everything is bound by a time factor. Okay? So an activity, manifestation is an activity. So it will start, then everything will happen, then it will get destroyed. Some portions will get into an unmanifested state. And then after that unmanifested portion is there, then based upon the triggering time or based upon the Lord's will, based upon that particular karma or the portion in which it has to happen, then the trigger will happen, then the start portion. For example, you have a start timer, right? Even though I have a timer in my hand, it depends on when I start it. Okay, so if I don't start it, my timer will not be running. So it will be there. The moment I start, it will start the timer. Then the moment I stop, then the timer will stop. So does that mean that it is not there? It is there, but it all depends upon when it is when it is getting started and when it is getting stopped. Okay, I think I'll stop here. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Koti Vaishnava ki jai.
Jai Sriman Sri Narayan Prabhu ki
Jai.